Welcome to the Bootblack corner where better footsteps in life are made. Thank you for coming to another episode. This is episode 4, season 2. Please, I just wanted to say again, I kind of forget because we're on YouTube. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment as well. Give your input. And yeah, let's just push and get to the next level. I'm here with a friend of mine. I brought him in just to have a conversation. I think I like to be very like typical, like practical, and make sure I have topics at hand and understand what I need to have. And sometimes I just want to have a conversation. And this is one person that I am able to have conversations with, and we can really go anywhere. So I just wanted to, have like a light-hearted conversation with him. Obviously, we still speak about things that actually matter, but it's a cool episode for me. So I'm here with Ariel. Thanks for coming, bro. I just want you to give like just who you are, and then we're just gonna get straight to it.
Hello, Bootblack family. My name is Ariel, like you mentioned, and this is a good friend of mine. I am honored to be here, and I'm glad to see the trajectory of this podcast and how it will soar. And thank you for having me, brother.
Right, yeah. So today we're gonna speak about change. I think we ourselves have had a lot of change in our life, and we've experienced many changes, and some small, some large, some internal, some external. When you face change in your life, you don't really have to tell me exactly what happened, but when you face change, what are things that you thought were not going to affect you that affected you, or what did you think that your body was going to react to change that actually didn't, vice versa, to say that change has come and I'm in a different space, or internally I feel different, or I feel like I'm a different human being. What are things that that you have changed? So what are things that made you change, or what are the things that have affected you as a result of that change?
That is a very good question. I like how you have mentioned how you have dissected the complexities of change. And to dive into how change has affected me personally, I would have to give you various analogies and examples in my personal life where I have had to embrace change or succumb to the change indefinitely. You speak about the changes from primary school to high school. What are the implications of that change? Because change is inevitable.
Yeah.
So, for example, I would look at the change from high school to varsity. A sense of fear did drive that change, because, like I said, change is inevitable,
Yeah.
and the feelings of the unknown, feelings that transcended beyond my control, did drive that sphere of fear, right? Because how do you deal with change that you cannot control?
Yeah.
And that's what change is in
Yeah.
hindsight. So I would really stick to that concept of fear. Fear did affect me in a sense where, how do you navigate? How do you step out that environment of comfortability that you have been used to? So, yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think for me, fear is also one of the first things that I feel when change comes. I don't think it was always that fear. I think it was normally anger, because I have a feeling sometimes change comes when you're comfortable. Like when things are actually going well, things actually change, and you kind of start to despise change, because I just started getting in the groove. I just started getting to know people. On my side, I mean, change has been evident throughout my life. That I've moved from a school to school. I know, I think in fifth grade or grade five, I left and went to a different country. I came back. I moved schools. I now went to university and went to a different city when I was comfortable in the one I was in. I've changed friends. I've changed people around me. My thought process have changed. I've came from being an angry person to an understanding person. So change has been so evident in my life for so long, and it was more anger to say that like I'm always being forced to change constantly, and it's as if you get tired because you just want to rest now and just be okay with being where you are, and sometimes you have to move in different places and you don't realize how stronger change is. It's just that period during change that's a bit hard, and that makes it difficult for us to then adapt to it. On the point of fear, as I said, it was also there until I just got okay with change. But now it's starting to get back to that place where it's also a bit of fear, maybe a bit, but then more it's over like it's more of just getting over the change. Once I get over it, I'm comfortable. But just like that beginning part, like yo, it's a bit hard. Like there's a lot of like force, There's just, you know, some grappling to do before that happens. And I think that's why I really want us to talk about change and why our bodies do that. Like, why do you think we feel fear when we have change?
I don't think it's more of the fact that we fear change, but I think we fear the sudden change,
Mm,
change that has sprung up upon us. I think we fear change because we don't have that sense of control over it. For example, you, well, like you mentioned, moving schools. You didn't have a choice to move school; it just happened to you,
mm,
right? And how do you react to that set change?
mm,
And I think there's a difference between sudden change and incremental change. Incremental change. Incremental change speaks to change that happens periodically over time, right? You waking up, you going to the gym every day, and you see changes in your weight, changes in your habits, changes in the way that brings growth within you. So fear that prevents us from stepping into that change or embracing change to its totality is, I think, what debilitates a lot of people because it puts you in that mind frame of, okay, I'm enduring this right now.
yeah.
How can I navigate the change that has been brought
Mm,
upon me?
okay. Do you like change?
Change is inevitable.
Yeah, it is inevitable. Do you do you like it? Do you think it's needed?
100%. I think change is needed because to change is to improve,
Yeah.
and then to improve is to change.
Yeah.
So we have to be very self-aware of
Mm,
ourselves to think that we are not perfect human beings.
mm.
Perfection does not exist within the realm of humanity,
Yeah, that's true.
but change calls us to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
We have greatness that is imbued within us. And how do you tap into that greatness?
Yeah.
Through change. Change is never comfortable.
Yeah.
And to step through change, to overcome change, like you mentioned, is to get out of that sense of comfortability, that comfort zone, and to embrace it,
Yeah.
to embrace what's on the other side.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think change calls you to a greater, calls the greater version of you is called through change.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think I can agree with that. I think when we look at the people who do achieve the things in their life, most of it came from the changes in their life,
Mm.
whether it be the physical change, where you're at the gym all the time, the mental change, you decide to actually read books, the financial change, your financial decisions that you make. Change in itself creates a new being,
Mm.
you know. You get to be a new being. So you're right to say, in most cases, you actually should want it. You actually should like change.
Yeah.
You actually should want to desire to have change. And but I don't even want to say but. I want to say, don't you wish you could control change? I think you can change so much to a point where you're at a place where you can control your change. As you said, the fear comes from the sudden change. But when you get to a place where you can actually control change, it's more of like decision making. You have the power to decide it.
Yeah.
There's a good saying that says that a good dancer knows when to step off the stage.
Mm.
Once you've had your dance, once you've had your performance and people are clapping, instead of trying to show you like people that you are better than others or you still want to showcase your talent, you need to know when to get off the stage and go off at a high note. And I think at those times where you're able to control change and because of your decision making, I think you have to go through a process of many changes, of course. I do believe I really would like to be able to get to a point where I can control change to say, I want this, but like I can keep it for a few months.
Mm. Mm.
Now and then I'm like, okay, it's time. I can retire, or it's time I don't want to be here, or it's time I don't really want to talk on this podcast anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I want to be able to control change, but it would take quite a long process to first understand change and get through many changes in itself.
Mm.
Because as you said, the sudden change be- creates fear in general. And I think we've had many, or personally, I've had many sudden changes. And I'm starting to control change a bit. Not really, but now we can even like branch into friendships because those change as well. Because people change. Now there's probably people I don't hang out with. There's probably people we don't hang out with because we could control the change to say, this person's a bit different now. I don't really have to say we're done. I can just be like, I can control that change and say, hey, control the narrative. Maybe we don't talk. Maybe I don't meet up with you. So I think that's just the control of change. You can elaborate when it comes to friendships. I mean, one thing you guys need to know is that Ariel and I come from Pretoria. And everyone who knows Pretoria knows Pretoria is small.
Yeah.
It is so small
Yeah.
that I may have not known you, but I know you now because of whatnot.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
too small. In actual fact, we didn't even know each other when we were in Pretoria.
No, we didn't.
But when we were in Joburg, where we met at UJ, when he was like, "Oh no, I used to be in this school," I'm like, "Oh, damn, bro, you were like 10 minutes away from my school. Oh, you know this person and this person." And eventually, like, we were able to connect friends immediately because of
Mm.
how small Pretoria is. And so, because Pretoria is so small, almost, everyone without maybe contacting them, or you probably know their name or whatever. But then change becomes inevitable, as you said, because people will now leave and become different people. And it's now like now you have to define the actual sections that you're in and the spaces you want to be,
Yeah.
you know?
It's actually crazy to think that we never knew each other through school, but our schools were 5 minutes apart,
Yeah.
actually. We're on the same
Yeah,
road.
yeah, same road.
And that speaks to change on on a global spectrum. I think change, like you mentioned as well, change is inevitable. And I think it speaks to more how you react to change
Mm,
rather than you having control over change.
yeah.
Look at the times of COVID, right? COVID was something, it called us to sudden change,
Mm,
right? There's a major outbreak of cases. Now you're forced to stay at home under the lockdown. How do you shift? How do you transition into that change that has been imposed on you? And that hence why I believe that change is governed by how your mind is set upon it, right? You can either
mm,
embrace change or change can happen to you.
mm,
Change can either happen for you or it can happen to you. And we need to come to terms with what you were mentioning, the sense of control that we as people would like to have. We are, by virtue, by nature,
mm,
control freaks,
mm,
right? We don't find stepping out of our comfortabilities, our comfort zones. How do I put this? What has changed to you, actually, in the sense where you having control as opposed to you not having control
mm,
of it?
mm.
What would you say to that?
How do I perceive change
Yes, global
in
change
in
that
terms of
affects the masses.
saying the control in terms of controlling it, being able to adapt to it.
Yes, yes.
So, look, for me, I think, as I said, I would love to control change. I can't control all change, as you said. There's sudden change, which comes with fear. I think we've ticked that box. The point is, when there's sudden change, you will feel some sense of fear. But when there's change where you can control, then you're able to discern when it's time. It's like, I think it feels like a superpower.
Mm, mm, mm.
If I can control change, it feels like I can control time. It feels like I can control time because then I know when change can happen. I mean, if you look at, like, as you said, exterior, big companies, sometimes, or say like Elon Musk, he can say one thing about the economy. You can say one thing about cryptocurrency, and it just falls or it increases, or shareholder price just changes.
Mm.
And that's the ability to control change, and it feels like you can control time. You cannot control time, but I think it's just that superpower. So for me, I learned, I had to know, when you adapt to change, the first feeling will be fear, as we said, and then after that, I learned that I can't stay in that bubble. I need to get out as quick as possible, because most of the times I really stayed in that bubble. I didn't go out to say, let me get out and now start to get to know people. I would just stay in it for so long because it's change, it's fear. Those who know me, I'm a quiet person. I
Mm.
don't really go out and speak to people, because, and most of the time, it's places where there's change. With people I'm comfortable with,
Yeah.
I will be a bit more open. But when I'm in places where I'm not comfortable, where it's a different thing, which is change, then I will get over the fear, but I would still stay in and try to see if I can gradually open up. But I believe that I should adapt quickly. I should get out as quick as possible, because if I don't, I'm going to stay there for a long time. And if I didn't do that, say for you, if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have known you. As much as you adapted to change a bit faster than me, because you kind of got to know me faster in terms of, oh, let's chill and whatever. With me, I was just like, hey, I'm just gonna stay in my room forever. But you were like, okay, let's go chill and let's go, go out and XYZ. So you adapted to the change quickly, maybe because you were comfortable in the space you were, having also stayed in Joburg, you know.
Mm.
But for me, I think it was a matter of, like, I stayed in, and I stayed in for a long time. And now I'm realizing, once change comes, as much as I need to adapt, I need to get out as quick as possible, because my body will stay there.
Mm.
If I don't, then it's a bit, So with that, I would say I would have defined, adapting to change as fear, but as well as just getting out as quick as possible.
Mm.
And then when it comes to control, it just feels like a superpower, bro. I just feel like if I can say when to stop things,
Mm.
I feel like I can move time, which is not possible. But everyone has a superhero story.
Yeah.
Everyone believes that they can have a certain power. And I feel like change sometimes comes with the power to change time.
Mm.
I don't know if you get what I mean.
100%. I get what you're saying. I think what you're speaking to is what many people face as well. The fear of, let me classify it as the unknown,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The things that, one, you don't have control over, but things you don't know the outcome to.
Mm,
And I think there's a misconception that we are taught to believe that fear is bad.
yeah.
And I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think all fear is bad, because I think to fully understand the importance of change, you need to have an understanding of what it is and how it can be applied to your personal life, to
Mm,
your internal, to the internal change that you have to embrace,
mm,
right? I think there are constructive fears and there are deconstructive fears.
mm.
Constructive fears are fears that propel you
Yeah.
into growth. Deconstructive fears are preventative. They prevent you. from doing things. Like you mentioned, there was times in your life where you were not comfortable with change because you felt as though the fear of preventing yourself from embracing that change
Yeah.
stopped you from, meeting new friends, getting into new industries,
Mm.
even this
Yeah.
transitioning into, having video casts as opposed to having podcast on your Google platforms and your
Yeah.
Apple platforms. And constructive fear, let me use an analogy, right? Let's say you want to go to the gym and you want to lose weight, right? You go to the gym, you train hard, but you don't see any results,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
That calls for change because you are working towards a desired result and you have not attained that result based off the system that you have created
Mm.
to achieve your objective, right?
Mm.
And I think that's how you identify change, actually.
Mm.
The identification of change is one, being self aware to say, okay, cool, this is the system, this is the process that I am putting in place to achieve what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
And through those processes, if you don't achieve the desired results, a change is required,
Mm.
right? You have to
Change
change
on
the
top of
system,
change as
change
well.
on top of
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
literally, so that you can identify and create a system that can get to your desired change,
Mm.
right? We're
Mm.
all subjective.
Mm.
We're all subjected to change,
Mm.
and personally, I would say change is internal change speaks to a desired result,
Mm.
right? I think we
Mm.
all have greatness within us, but
Mm.
how do you become greater than you are?
Yeah.
You need to change,
Yeah.
right? You need to embrace the change,
Yeah.
and that's what constructive fear calls to, right?
Mm.
Let's say another analogy. I'm starting a new position as a leader or in the workplace in an environment that I've never been in. The transition from varsity to your first job, right? This is something completely different because you've never been in that environment.
Yeah.
Constructive fear would call you to face the challenge head on,
Mm.
right? Which would propel you to become a better version of yourself. And that's the change. That's I would say, the mentality we ought to have, right?
Mm.
Using fear for our benefit,
Mm.
using fear as an advantage,
Mm.
as opposed to having change occur to us.
Mm.
Because I think, going back to what you said about having a sense of control over change,
Mm.
right? I think having a deconstructive mentality or a deconstructive approach to fear is what debilitates us
Mm.
to progress,
Mm.
right? Because it speaks to how you prevent yourself from embracing it and change happening to you.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the point that you were speaking on change on top of change, I think it feels like you really have to force that change to happen. And if I use your analogy of going to the gym, it feels like this program was supposed to work for you and it didn't. And now you have to force that change to happen to see if it could work for you. And I think that's the hardest part of change. And I would bring it to friendships and relationships and connections with people because that's more of the things that happen is that this friendship was supposed to work. This gym program was supposed to work and it's not. And I actually have to force that change. Even when I wanted it to work,
Mm.
you have to let go of the change you thought was working to then get into the change that you feel like is going to work. And sometimes it doesn't give you the guarantee that it will.
Yeah.
So change in itself is so complex. I didn't think of it like that, that there's change in itself. There's exterior, interior. There's one that comes without your knowledge. There's one that you force to happen. And then there's change on top of the change that is already there. And that one requires more of your own muscle to carry because number one, you've got to believe that this new change you're doing is going to work, even though it may not. And number two, you got to believe that this change will be able to actually push away the change that has already come into your life
Mm.
and adapt to it again. But we could go far with it. But yeah, that was just really cool to say. There's like change on top of change.
It's crazy that you mentioned that. And something just hit me as you were speaking about change on top of change. Like, you are the captain of your own life, right?
Mm.
Meaning that the choices you make will firstly and most importantly affect you,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it's important to be intentional about change,
Mm.
and change that is progressive to yourself,
Mm.
because you'll get to a point where the change that you identify that is necessary for yourself
Mm.
can force you to change the environments that you're around,
Mm.
right? Some people might not be comfortable with the change that you've decided to make for yourself.
Mm.
And how do you deal with change that propels you out of stagnation, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be able to equip your mind for change. And us as human beings, as individuals, how do we equip our minds to be able to have a progressive outlook on change? And how
Mm.
are we able to discern when change is necessary in our personal lives?
Mm.
Speaking to internal change, of course. What did you say on
Yeah.
that?
Discernment of change. I think so. Sort of like when to know when it's time to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say number one would be the 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 saying that I said before, that a good dancer knows when to leave the stage. So normally, when change really comes to you and discerning when it's time to change, you know you've been a good dancer in whatever you've been doing. Number one, or maybe you need a different stage.
Mm.
Um, and I think, or maybe you haven't reached your full potential. I think for me, how I would discern my change, I mean, this is personal to you guys who, or any of you guys who feel like you're facing change now. For me, how I would discern change is, there's just something in me that feels like I'm not supposed to be where I'm at. It's a gut feeling. We don't really listen to ourselves a lot. And I believe that there is change that comes from exterior, but I think when we're discerning change, it's interior.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it means if it's interior, it really just doesn't feel right. There's just a feeling inside within you that just feels, I don't feel like I'm in the right space. And I think, you know, I don't know like what um, religious beliefs anyone out there has, but I would believe that this is probably something God is telling me. I'm like telling me something. I'm just not in the right space. So I think discernment would be just like looking at yourself, and you will feel it. Like you will feel that, hey, this something is coming, or I'm probably not supposed to be in a space. Some people call it a gut feeling. Some people call it their sixth senses. Some people call it their spidey what's. You know, I don't want to tell you what you should call it, but I think it would be that. I think it would be very like looking at yourself, and some real self introspection, and understanding that the place that I'm in kind of needs something new.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not reaching the level I was supposed to reach. Maybe I've performed so good that I need to reach another level, or maybe I'm not performing in the place that I'm in, and I need a new stage to dance on.
Mm.
I need
Mm.
a new
Mm.
audience to dance
That's
for.
good. That's good.
So it would be that. So it doesn't mean if I'm not doing well, I'm gonna stay on the stage. Sometimes, guys, like you guys are doing things that are not for you, and I believe that I'm. Sometimes there's some things I'm doing that are not for me. That I'm like, yeah, no, this is not your crowd, bro. You're not that good at
Yeah.
this, and I'll be like, okay, cool, and so I think it would be that, and say, okay, it's time to leave the stage. We both love football, so we used to, well, we still play football for fun,
Mm.
but I think you resonate with me that we thought we were gonna be football stars and be
100%.
the best in the world. Now I'm not gonna blow my horn, but I really think I'm a good player,
Mm.
right? But I think, no, don't, like, be honest. Be honest to the people out there.
Don't lie to the people at
No,
home,
be
bro.
honest to the people out there. So I would believe that I was good at football, but I think I knew when I had to leave the stage. Not because I couldn't reach a level that I should, but I felt that I needed a new stage to perform on with a new audience. Does not mean that I didn't have the potential to be good in that time. And that is the control of change, to say I was able to control myself to say, I don't think this is going to be for me. I don't think I would do the impact that I believe I set my life, I'm here for, in that stage that I was on. I could probably be a good footballer. Maybe, I'm not saying I would, maybe make it to the big leagues, be able to provide for family, be able to give money to some charities and actually live a good life.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're supposed to be on the stage.
True.
So I think that would be number one, the gut feeling, but understand that it doesn't mean because you're not good at something, you should stay on, and because you're good at something, you should stay on. Sometimes you need a new stage to dance on
That's
and a
good.
new audience to dance on.
That's good.
What do you think about that?
I think the issue with the whole concept of change is that we allow change to happen to us and not for us. Right? Like you mentioned, knowing when it is time to take a step back because it's not for you, and knowing when to, continue or
Yeah.
diversify into the new change that,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, the change upon the change. Having, I think that speaks to what we all have as human beings, right?
How do you personally discern your change?
Discern my change. Wow. I think it goes back to your mindset towards change. Are you receptive of change, or are you receptive of change, or do you prevent yourself from embracing that change? And personally, I think I attest to my mentality around change, or the way that I am receptive of change, is because I look at it from an optimistic point of view, right? I accept change because I know change will either progress me or it will bring me to the growth that I need to tap into a higher level of myself, right? So I think that's the mentality we ought to have as people, to be proactive
Yeah.
and have a sense of control so that change works for us.
Yeah.
And not be reactive so that change happens to us.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually powerful. I think we could carry on this conversation forever, because it's complex, and we said it before we actually got onto this podcast, because we knew we were just having a conversation, and we
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
it could go anywhere. So we don't want to spend too much time. I just want to say in closing, obviously, I say this to everyone that comes on the podcast, and I say it also when I speak. What is your message to your future self? Now, this doesn't mean you in 10 years. What I mean by future self is basically in the next 100 years, there will be another person who will see this, because we have things that are well documented. And if you want to be part of history, try get into the areas that we're going to be documented in. You know, if you want to write a blog, write a blog. If you want to have a podcast, if you want to make music, if you want to be on the news, whatever you wish to do, remember that you are another script to history, because before we didn't have these things.
That's good.
And so I think before, I probably have, as I said in another podcast when I was interviewing Caesar, we probably have minimal information about what happened in the 1700s, in the 1800s, because most of these things didn't get documented. But now, 500 years from now, people can just press play or whatever, technology they're going to have, and they're going to see this, and they're going to say, yo, in 2023, 2024, like, there was people who were saying things. And what is one thing you'd want the future to hear? It could be about change. It could be about you. But, just a brief explanation of what would you say to your future self. Maybe make it about change. It'd be cool.
A message to my future self. I think the first thing that I would emphasize is trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the transitions of change, and have an optimistic mindset in everything you do, right? Being proactive as opposed to being reactive, right? Choosing to focus on the narrative.
Yeah.
That is the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So trusting the process and keep on doing what you're doing. Fall forwards
Yeah.
so you can progress into the growth that takes you to a higher level.
Yeah, that's good. Especially by that time, change would be faster than what it is
Astronomical.
now.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
you guys are probably going to be in Mars by that time.
100%.
So yeah.
Elon, we're counting on you.
So yeah, thank you for watching another episode of the Bootback Corner. Please just like, subscribe, and comment about what you feel about change, and sometimes maybe your stories about change and what came to you. Maybe it wasn't fear, maybe it was insecurity, maybe it was anger, as I said in the beginning. So just tell us about what you feel about change, and let's just connect and speak on it. For young businesses as well, I will be interviewing a few young entrepreneurs as well throughout the course of these few episodes. If you wish to have a conversation with me and just speak about your business, or I think we will have, I will speak on it. I think I will try to start some few campaigns and stuff. Like we've got some cool stuff coming. I think Ariel also will help me with that. So we got some few stuff coming for the business people out there. But for now, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, cool guys.